Joining us today on BTTV, I have with me Rattan Keswani. Many of you would know him as a veteran from the hospitality industry. He stepped down last year from his position as Deputy MD at Lemon Tree Hotels and Director at Carnation Hotels as well. And he's had a long-standing career. That's what's led him to write this book, Check In, Never Check Out, which is now available for you to kind of pick up, and has all kinds of anecdotes from his career, starting off with the Oberoi Group all the way till his more recent adventures designing hotels for groups. Rattan, thanks so much for joining us. First, let's talk about the title. Check in, never check out. We gotta get the story behind that.
Okay, so many titles were dabbled with, but all of us, I think, at an age from your side to maybe going back a little older, would definitely remember the song called Hotel California by Eagles, and where it says you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Yeah. A thought came to me that a lot of us who got steeped into the world of hospitality, and at least for the last 1.5 years, I feel that, and I think I continue with, you can leave hospitality, but it doesn't seem to leave your mind and soul. And that is the memories or the learnings that I've tried to capture in the book. So I thought it made one of the select titles to be more sensible than the others that we threw out in a discussion set.
Good fun. I think that what really comes out, the flavor of the book is the amount of fun that you had with the experiences that surprised you over the years, from various hotels and cities and countries that you worked at, to meeting all kinds of people. What led you to write the book? Was it to kind of share perhaps some sense of best practices with others? Was it to mentor the younger generation that may feel equally at sea when they're starting out? What were some of the reasons why you felt like penning down the story?
So there were many reasons, and I think with some colleagues I kind of dabbled this thought about 25 years ago, because I wanted to make the book on an extension, something not just relevant to hospitality, but more relevant to my learnings in management and in learning. As I write in the book, I got into the trade, not really out of choice, but got into it any which ways, and went through a huge variety of experiences, and I use the word variety very carefully. I knew what I could do reasonably well or pick up very well, but there were some things, because you didn't have working continuity with them, didn't sit in the mind, and therefore you had to revise them much later in life. In the hotel, and what most people don't understand, I think it's the biggest piece that kind of caught me in every hotel that I worked in. And later I also ran some small hotels. That hotels are a bit of a cauldron inside. Depending upon the age of the hotel, the number of people that you have in the hotel, it's a huge mix. It's like a mini city. If today we understand the complexities of India, it is as complex as the country of India. You have people from all kinds of backgrounds who came in whenever they came in, some not so educated, maybe shorn of even secondary education. They came in from different social structures, thoughts were different, cultures were different, what they accepted and didn't accept from each other was different. And of course, we don't see it, but I talk about my similar episode where there was this thing about a certain category of person can only clean bathrooms and rooms, and I won't name. So this is still there, and yet over a period of time. And of course, people start up, they stay in small little hovels, then they buy bigger hovels, and then they move to slightly better accommodation. They have more kids, they earn more money, but a lot of them do the same job. They do the same job for 40 years. Their bodies ache, their minds tire, and yet they have to, interact within the property with a younger person with a different background, and your own level of acceptances or lack thereof. Very early was my first exposure to true diversity from a LGBTQ part. It kind of found out that some of the colleagues and friends I was working with were in the closet and they were hesitant to come out. But the way they spoke and the way they behaved, they got caught out, and they weren't treated very nicely. Today, there's a lot of content that gets spoken about. Again, same thing about diversity and ladies and caste structures and social structures. It's such a mix. They interact in the cafeteria, they interact at work. There are scraps that happen, not because they're work scraps, but they're just everybody's very frizzy in wherever they came from. They've had a fight with their mother-in-law, father-in-law. Kids have a problem. They cook and travel 2 hours, work for 12 hours, go back for 2 hours. But yet, I know no organization with brand standards or processes can teach you what to do with this environment. And everything that I think classical HR looks at is just very bookish. It doesn't work.
Sure.
Treat people the same way. Hello, people are different. One shoe just does not fit all. Everybody wants to be looked at differently. Some allow you in their space, some don't. You have to be very careful. But if you get in their space of understanding, they respond well, which means you've got to kind of open yourself up and understand and accept their critique, or let me say suggestions. You go through lots of psychological and leadership changes. And then to compound with, if you have a crazy, crazy experience with just too many crises in different places hitting you, you see them responding, and you see them responding out of love, love for the business, love for the customer. They go in there from whatever financial backgrounds they come for. They look at the customer's behavior with envy, but they don't show it. They still do their job with a smile. The doors open, the smiles are on, and they seem genuine most times. And only 2% of the people, in my opinion, really kind of default on that one. So I always wonder what makes people tick. Why do they do this? What is it about us or leadership, or what can we do better to make their working day so much better, to help them grow better? And the last part was, as I kind of picked up, some you realize in your job knowledge, some stuff you're still retaining. Some because you haven't connected with it, well, it's kind of gone. Or it's changed and you're not up to speed. Or new stuff that you're responsible and accountable for because of your position, you really don't know too much about. Social media, all the stuff that happens on it. So, but you're accountable to take a decision without knowing too much about it. But they expect you to know. You're supposed to be the god of all ills and, satisfaction of every decision. So you've got to, admit to that yourself, and either find people who the others might find to be maverick in their behavior, because that's just the way a certain kind of creative person is. Their behavior, their way of working would be frowned upon. Hamare time pe aisa nahi tha. How can you allow this to happen? But hey, that's what makes them tick. So when you allow them space, you allow what is called favoritism. So a lot of shit goes on in your, sorry to say the word, and therefore, how do you put it together? And from I changed, I think, in my leadership style and personality. I think I must have gone through about 7, 8 changes. If I look back to who I was, what I was when I began, to who I am and how I am today, I'm very different. And I think my team and the family feels the same way too.
I lost you at I changed.
Okay. So like I said, I think I changed about 7, 8 times in how my personality, my style, or the way I treat things, the way I learn things has gone through many changes. And most time it's been driven because my team member said so. Or most time it's been driven because I realized, hey, if I let them do some stuff, they're actually doing some stuff I should be good at. And so I have to allow them some liberties. And if I do, then I must satisfy their need to grow in a different manner. I must give them recognition in a different manner. But it's such a mix because ages, backgrounds. So my Delhi example that I talked about, I actually had to ask them, how would you like me to treat you for you to, one, work better? Sure. So obviously I'm not doing it right. And therefore, after that, can you sit down together and say, how can you treat each other so that you can all work together in case I'm just not around? But they were happy to, you know, answer my questions or therefore give suggestions once the barriers had been broken. I made cue cards because I couldn't remember who wanted to be treated the right way and the other way. And every time they'd come to my office, I take out the cue card and said, "Uh-oh, A, I need to be very careful I don't say this, or A, I don't need to, be in this environment." And it worked. I mean, these little things worked. And I think in so small ways, in those locations, we created new magic. And the same thing continued in Carnation, where the experiences were very different. So
Okay, so if I were to get you to kind of give us a quick insight, or give our viewers, let's say, the top three tips in both of these scenarios. One would be in terms of team building, and I know there are a lot of nuggets through the book. If we just had to kind of give them a quick insight into what you think would be the top three things to keep in mind while team building, and keep in mind that there may be varied natures of entrepreneurs and young businesses watching you, what would they be?
yeah, so I think again, you took it right. I hope whatever I've written and can say can help people outside hospitality too. I mean, that was my intent and the objective. But I just say what you know and who you are, keep it as your strength. If there's some things that you don't know, accept yourself for who you are. What you can work on, and then what you can't do because you may have challenges towards it, find people who can do them for you. And accept the inefficiencies or the deficiencies at both parts, and gonna build it into one mix of talented people who can help each other with their knowledge, which may be more than the other person's. Whatever is being said in the past may no longer be relevant. So be able to shed the past because the customer is different. We are able to always talk about, let's customize customer experiences, which means individualize them. But hey, the second biggest customer, for our business is our internal customer. So if you were to tweet that same language and it makes sense yesterday and pre-COVID and now totally different for COVID, why don't we do the same thing for the internal customer as well? Customize the experiences for your team members for the way they want to grow their life. Do they know where they're going? How can you help them get there? What role can they play in your success? In which case you must play a role in their success the way they want it. And that really depends upon their age group and whatever. And it's an interesting challenge and a mix that happens most times. And learn to listen without reacting to critique. That's the most important thing. Don't be defensive. Two, I think most people, we make all kinds of statements, and for years, performance appraisals, and people say this is the new one, Kotler to downwards. Recently in CNN, they were, oh, everything's changed now. People, the point is not that one thing that's changed hasn't changed. Is, are you engaging enough? Are you empathetic enough? Are you putting yourself in the shoes of the other person enough? If you're doing it for the customer, learn to do it for them. And two, in your P&L, don't treat them as the expense. Treat them as your balance sheet item, which is how would you treat an asset? How often would you repair and look after it? How often would you give it a learning, annual maintenance investment so that they grow? How quickly and how often do you revalue your asset? Because ultimately, if it's a valuation game in the words of the bean counters, then this is an asset. The greater the value, the quality of their delivery and the quality of their retention and how much you are learning and growing them, it actually has an intrinsic value that people don't treat. So whenever you go to, shake up things and you're in a bit of a trouble, the first thing that goes out of the window and everybody thinks of is payroll cost, training cost. Worst thing, if you don't have them, you'll have to restart all over again. Sure. And nothing works magic like the team who knows your customers, whether you are direct in touch with the customer or any business model. What the biggest learning from hospitality is, every single other company has just maybe 2 or 3 verticals working. There'll be manufacturing and product order, creation. Then there'll be sales and marketing will be separate. And then there'll be this, overlying layer of corporate finance. That's it. And all of them are not interacting with your customers all the time. Here you've got 16 different segments, 20 different, I'm just throwing a number, social, cultural age types, from, contracted workers to outside vendors. They're dealing with hundreds of interactions with your direct customer. I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of, depending on the size of the location, whatever you do, are moments of truth. And if one goes wrong, and well, why does it not go wrong? Because they just feel the business, and there's no culture that can teach you. It's just the empathy of understanding what you need to do and widening the scope of that. So,
you've been meeting with all of the legends from the space, and talking about your book. Share with us any anecdotes or any sort of moments that you'd like to that have stayed with you as you've completed this journey of writing it and sharing it with the ecosystem.
well, what's been good is, the certain people's opinions have always mattered to me. They've been mentors over many, many years. Therefore, they were the first ones I went and gave the book to and say, give me feedback. The unfortunate thing is that, they're slow readers. They don't like reading. So, I kept struggling with feedback. But yeah, I think overall the feedback's been very good. I was worried, was I writing present tense, past, all this, because you don't have a skill of a writer.
Sure.
So I was wondering if the flow was working right. Was it too much of me, but I didn't want it to sound like that. Was it serving my objective? Was it a little light-hearted? So with the publisher, I told some of the young editors who were, age groups between 35, 30, said, read it and say, I wanted to turn the next page. And if you tell me that I did, well, we got that. But to come back, I think they've said it's been decent. It's a good read, and they would advocate it. A couple of them have said maybe I should have written a little bit more about my time and learnings and the people and the structure at Lemon Tree, because that was 10 years after all, and that was more my setting up a different business platform. Yes, point taken, but after a point in time, I had lost the right triggers, to say, so I had to make it a bit more compact. But hey, maybe if it works well, maybe there could be a sequel. So we'll keep it that. We make Lemon Tree and the next piece a larger part of it.
So I had a final question. You've talked about how you worked with all kinds of hotels. What did you enjoy more? Was it building out a business hotel brand, or was it the time that you spent at building out the luxury hotel and operations, and as you've written, hotels that have stood the test of time in terms of elegance and class and being renowned for their luxury?
Many people have asked me this question. So one answer I always give is I like old architectural kind of hotels, whether in business locations or otherwise. It's just that history piece that if it can be evoked. I mean, I'd give an example of the Raffles or the Imperial Delhi, right? My preference is always with that kind of hotel. But can I otherwise specify? I think you leave a part of your heart and soul in every other place if it went well, and have the people responded. So Cecil was my first, it'll always have a special heart. Bombay had the biggest volume. In Carnation, I created them from scratch, from whatever my learnings were from Mr. Oberoi. I mean, just whatever I observed and whatever I learned, it came into practice. And what was good is if architects and interior guys said, how the hell did you say that? So I just sat with the best person, who does it so brilliantly. And then with part two, there was this whole thing about working the business model of that same creation. And then trying to find that mix to say, fine design, almost luxurious, though I created the luxury brand as well for Lemon Tree, but working more efficiently, and I would say more effectively, and therefore more profitably, and to find that amalgam. I found that wonderful. And three, working with 2-3 people that I mentioned in the book, they did things for me that I would have needed a larger team of consultants to do. Because of maybe their family exposures or just the interest that they had. So we did all the creations internally between 4 people, which was a soul filling exercise. So
I think it's always in those startup days that you really feel bonded and connected to the team and the journey and the outcome. But thank you so much. It's great to have an insight into all that transpired behind the scenes.
But I'd just like to end with one thing, and I'm pushing the cause of, please urge the listeners to say, what's most important for me is, while royalties are small, but the royalties will be going to an NGO called MUSKAAN PAED. I worked with them in my lemon tree times, and they kind of support, train, and place differently able people. So if for nothing else, people need to buy the book and read it. It helps the cause, and I think we should all support causes such as that, because a whole variety of wonderful people that we can work with and give them a level of self-esteem and a great life, what we don't do enough. So I hope that message also goes through to everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.